Hello, you sentient ball of stardust. My name is Casey Davis. I'm a therapist and I'm an author of the book How to Keep House While Drowning, where I talk about ways to make it a little bit easier to take care of yourself when you're overwhelmed, stressed, have mental health issues, physical health issues, or maybe you're just in a hard season of life. Maybe you're looking for a place that you can come and listen to some practical advice. This is a podcast for all of the self-help rejects. We're going to talk about skills for survival and self-kindness. And I'm going to leave the pop psychology at the door. I promise not to tell you to meditate or to journal. We're just going to give you some really insightful conversations with hopefully some practical advice. So I don't believe you need to pick yourself up by the bootstraps. I don't want you to just try harder, and I don't believe that laziness exists. So join me over on Struggle Care, where we can find compassionate solutions that help us function a little bit better.
Are you struggling to conceive? You have options, and at Piedmont Reproductive Endocrinology Group, we'll make sure you have the guidance and support you need. PREG is known for individualized fertility care that's unique to every patient. We take the time to provide a reassuring and empowering experience because we believe that you deserve nothing less. Let us help you on your journey to parenthood. Visit us at pregonline.com to learn more. Get the guidance and support you need at Piedmont Reproductive Endocrinology Group.
Stoveleg Media, igniting conversation.
Friends, lovers, listeners, everybody else. It's me, your girl, your host, Elena Grace. And you're listening to another episode of I've Been Thinking. So welcome. I am so excited. Honestly, I'm so excited to be here, just in general, and I'll tell you why. But I'm very excited to bring you guys this episode today. As we know, it is December 3rd. It is the first episode of the month, and that means it is a book of the month. So, in case you didn't read the title of this episode, I'll surprise you with that in a second. But Adam and I are moving. We are moving, and that's why I'm excited to be here, okay? So we are moving 11 hours away to Florida, and we are thrilled. It's an awesome opportunity. You can read a little bit more about it. I'm going to put a post on the blog about it, but it's just this awesome opportunity, and we are so excited, but we are in the process of very quickly packing up our apartment, and that's a lot of work, like a lot of work. And I'm very stressed about it. Adam is like a walking ball of stress. He is just like gyrating all the time because he has so much nervous energy in his body. It's just a lot. So that's why I'm really excited to be here and be with you guys today because, I needed this. I needed a little break. And that's also why, for Patreon listeners, this episode is coming just a little bit later than usual. I'm sorry about that for you guys. If you guys don't know, just in general, if you are subscribed to the Patreon at any level, and I have now adjusted them, so there's a new level available on Patreon, where you don't get any extra content. You only get early episodes. There's a new level available for that. So if y'all want to support the podcast in that way, I would be so grateful. But this episode's coming a little bit late for our early Patreon subscribers. So I do apologize for that. I am just a walking hot mess. Anyway, speaking of the Patreon, if you can, if you're able, if you so desire, please check that out. Consider supporting the podcast. That is how it's able to sustain itself. And that's also how this holiday season we are donating 100% of our Patreon subscription profits, which is everything I make the month of November and December from Patreon, which is all I make from the podcast at this point, that is all going to Appalachian charities. And I've talked about it in the last 2 episodes, I think, and I also talked about it on the blog. So if you want to go learn more about those, absolutely check out I'veBeenThinkingPod.com/blog. But they're very, very worthy charities, and I'm very excited to be able to give back in that way, thanks to you guys. So anyway, if you would like to participate in that and get early and or extra episodes, and here's the kicker, okay? Let me sell this to you for one last second. All of the extra episodes on Patreon right now are video-based. I'm switching over. There's like a ton of regular podcast episodes, extra ones on there, but I am switching over to doing Patreon episodes as video episodes. So I really love doing that, and that's the Patreon exclusives. And really loving doing that. It's been so much fun for me, such a learning experience in the best way. And I've been getting good feedback. People seem to enjoy. So I hope you guys enjoy. Now, moving on. We are here today for a book of the month, and we are going to be talking about Kristen Hanna's novel, The Nightingale. Now, first of all, this is not the movie that's on Netflix right now. Trust me. That movie is totally different. This is a novel, and they are making a movie out of this novel. I'm super excited about it. Last I heard, the Fanning sisters were supposed to play the 2 main characters, so that is going to be incredible. But this novel is set in World War II France, and we follow the story of 2 sisters, Vianne Rossignol-Muriac and Isabelle Rossignol, in World War II France. And these 2 sisters aid the French resistance against the Nazis in various ways. And I don't want to go too much in detail about exactly how things play out. So there's not really any major spoilers in here, okay? I don't think there's any major spoilers at all, truly. I've tried very hard to keep that out because I want you all to read this book. When I tell you I read it in like 2 days, like could do nothing else. I started looking up French countryside 1920s recipes. Like I was obsessed. I was engrossed in this book. During the first lockdown, that's when I read it. It was perfect. It's such a good book. And Kristen Hanna is just an incredible author. And if you read this, you'll totally understand why. So, we have the older sister, Vianne. She is a rule follower, and she's everything that we're taught that women should be. She's kind, she's motherly, she's ladylike. And then we have the younger sister, Isabelle, and she is rebellious and outspoken, and she's not particularly interested in any of the things that are considered, quote, socially acceptable for young ladies. So, the sisters, because of their major personality differences and some kind of traumatic childhood events, they don't get along super well. And throughout the book, we see a lot of butting heads. So Vianne ends up allowing, and she kind of has to, she's not really given a choice, but she ends up allowing a Nazi officer to commandeer her home, where she's raising her daughter alone while her husband is at war fighting the Nazis. And Isabelle is forced to flee Paris, where she lives with their father. And at this point, Isabelle joins the resistance. And that is where she becomes known as the Nightingale. So that's where the name for the novel comes from. Now, I don't know about you, but I love a good World War II resistance story. Like a good World War II female resistance story is like chef's kiss, creme de la creme, the best. Like every single woman who defied societal norms and the Nazis, they can get it. They can call me up in their time travel machine, because right now they're elderly and I would love them. I would love to talk to them. I would love them, but I would not be physically attracted to them at this point in my life. I'm sorry. But they can call me up in their time machine. They can get it. Now, I want to talk about that today, not about that. We're here to talk about the book's exploration of gender and of identity and of the expectations of women imposed by society. So that's what we're here to talk about. And of women and how they resist and how we resist and how we have to play a long con sometimes, all of those things, and how that is kind of part of womanhood, and sometimes it's unfortunate. During the early pages of the book, one of the sisters narrates, "It's a fact that women are useless in war. Their job is to wait for the men's return." And that is kind of, I mean, it's foreshadowing for the remainder of the book, where these two sisters prove themselves absolutely the opposite of useless. They are pivotal in their stories, in their world. They're absolutely, in the world of everybody they touch, these two sisters play this massive role, okay? But yet, at the same time, women are told that they're useless, when in fact they can have such an impact without having to put on armor and go into war. So that's what we're here to talk about. Now, Vienne and Isabel represent every single woman who experiences war in so many ways. They represent those who take part, those who fight, those who survive, those who die. They represent the women who have to fight and avoid death in a very active sense, and those who have to play a more difficult and nuanced game behind the scenes. They represent the women who stay home, and they represent the women who refuse to, and they represent the women whose lives are never the same, which is truly every woman who's ever touched by war. Now, to begin, Isabel is bold. She is willing to fight for what she believes is, she's willing to fight for what she believes is right and fight against what she believes is wrong. She is ready to defy authoritarianism. And these are all traits that are celebrated in men. And these are all traits that she has exuded her entire life. But she's always been punished for it. Because she's a woman, she's been called rebellious in a bad way, not in like a sexy way. She's called hard to deal with, and she's considered incapable of fighting in like an official sense, as an official soldier in the war. And that's why she becomes a member of the guerrilla resistance in the countryside of France. Now, Isabel is constantly trying to be seen as, quote, more than a girl, as just more than this thing that's holding her back. And that's a really interesting, like, onion layer to her story, because she doesn't hate being female. She's actually pretty fine with being a girl. She likes being feminine sometimes. She falls in love with a boy that she meets. All of these things. She likes being an auntie to her niece. But I think what she hates is the way that society makes being female a burden. It's something that's made to be restrictive and difficult in so many ways, and something that holds women back from doing the things that they might want to do. And it's not that every woman wants to do these things. It's just that some that are being restricted by society. It's just that some do. And men don't have to face those same kinds of restrictions when it comes to fighting for what you believe in, educating yourself, things like that, the things that Isabel wants to take part in. Obviously, especially at this point in time, men face their own societal restrictions, and it's bullshit. It's awful. This book focuses on the feminine aspect of it, but this book does a really beautiful job of highlighting, I think, how identity and gender and societal norms and the context of the time are all playing together to hold people down, right? Specifically, Isabel and Vienne. Anyway, I'm going on a rant, and I'm going to stop making sense in a minute. So I've got to go back to my notes, okay? Because that's honestly, if you want to talk a little bit about that, if you want to hear a little bit about that, go back and listen to the episode I did with Henry Kramer. A beautiful episode where we really dive in to Henry's experiences of gender and sexuality and identity. Obviously not in a historical context, like in a World War II context. Henry, I don't think, is a vampire. Let me know if you are, Hen, because I've missed that somewhere. But, no. God, I'm a nerd. Anyway, that's a really good episode where we talk about gender and identity and all of that. But I severely digress. So, again, going back to my notes, Isabel very much wants to be more than a girl in the best way, because she wants to be capable of things that society doesn't expect of women just because of its closed-mindedness. It's not that she hates being a woman. It's not any of those things. She just wants to be able to be herself. It's basically the feminist dream, to be allowed to be herself and do what she wants, to be considered equally capable, and to also be a woman. And she does prove herself in that. She really does. And she also is able, however, to use her gender and society's expectation to her advantage, because the Nazis don't expect resistance fighters to be female. She is literally able to fly right beneath their noses, doing things that if she had been a man, she would have easily gotten caught and killed in no time, in 0 seconds. And being a girl literally saves her life truly more than once, but in a very big way. So it's really interesting, the dichotomy of that, being a woman and not being expected to be able to do anything, and yet being a woman and defying odds and still not being held equally capable. But how in this instance, it is actually a saving grace. It's really interesting, that dichotomy. And Kristen Hanna does an incredible job of playing into that, of going into it, and of making that all so raw. Okay? Now, on the other hand, we have Vienne, the older sister, and she represents doing everything right by society and the rules. Vienne represents traditional femininity and feminine values in a lot of ways. She's a mother and a wife. She's obedient and doting. She's a school teacher, and she's a good friend. And she goes with the flow in a lot of ways. At the beginning of the book, almost, a Nazi officer commandeers her home. It's a grand old farmhouse that was left to her from her family. commandeers it for his own because it's the grandest, biggest house in her countryside village. And she's obligated by societal expectations of womanhood and by their power disparity to provide meals and to provide a comfortable accommodation for him. And she has to live with the shame. And that's another thing. Women so often have to live with shame because of things out of their control. And she has to live with the shame of knowing that this man, this Nazi, is living under her roof while her husband fights him at war and while her village suffers around her. And then she also has to live with the knowledge later on that her little sister is actively fighting everything this man stands for and this man himself. Literally. And Vienne has to work desperately to hide that from him under her own roof in order to protect her baby sister and her little girl. Vienne's best friend is Jewish, and Vienne has to do everything she can to protect her while also protecting herself and her family. And she's got a lot going on. And let me tell you, Kristen Hanna has done an absolutely impeccable job of making you feel every single emotion going through Vienne's head, going through Isabel's head and body, like everything she's feeling in her frickin' body, the fear, Vienne as well, the fear, the desperation, all of it. The just fight or flight, trying your best to not panic, to do everything that you can to protect your little nest, your family itself, your baby sister, your child, yourself if you can, willing to sacrifice everything. Both sisters willing to sacrifice everything for the greater good. And yet they both do it so differently. And Isabel's is a very selfless, but also selfish way that she doesn't want to endanger her family. She wants a better life for her sister and for her niece. And she's willing to sacrifice herself, but at the same time, she does put her family in danger. And Vienne is trying to play it safe. And she's willing to sacrifice things that she loves. She's willing to sacrifice herself, but at the same time, she knows that to keep her family safe, to continue keeping them safe, she has to keep herself alive too. And she has to be willing to sacrifice other things, whether right or wrong. And then that's another thing that she struggles with, being willing to sacrifice and then trying to make up for that. Guys, there's so much going on in this book. Y'all need to read it. I think that it kind of comes down to this for me. That Vienne is the perfect example of how even if a woman does every single thing she's told to do, every single thing she's supposed to do, even if a woman doesn't fight, isn't difficult, is always ladylike, and never makes herself a problem, it doesn't matter. It doesn't protect her from terrible things, from devastation, from desperation, from the ravages of war that are so often reserved for the conquered women. That doesn't protect her, ever. And Isabel is the perfect example of doing everything you can to do the right thing in spite of who you are and those around you, of risking your life, of loving fiercely, and of helping as much as you possibly can. Isabel is the embodiment of no good deed goes unpunished. She doesn't die by torture. She isn't shot down by the Nazi border control. She achieves absolutely unmatched success in aiding the resistance, and she does make an incredible impact. but it's not enough for her to get her own happy ending. Guys, I cannot recommend enough that you go read this book, Kristen Hanna's The Nightingale. I'm going to include a link to ordering this book in the blog post for today's episode. It's incredible, and I really, really want you all to go read it, okay? This is not sponsored, I wish. Now, again, if you can, go check out the Patreon for more content, for early content, all of the above. Go check out the Patreon or the Instagram at I've Been Thinking Pod for all kinds of updates, all that stuff. I'm being more active on Twitter at Been Thinking Pod. And check out the website, I'veBeenThinkingPod.com, for blog posts, for journals, for the notes and links and sources for today's show, all of the above. That's where you can find everything podcast related. So I hope you guys have loved this episode. I hope it's made you think about who you are and maybe how who you are has been defined, or how you have defied gender to become who you are. That's really what I want to encourage you guys to think about. Thank you so much for listening, y'all, and I will talk at you next week. I love you. Bye.
Hello, you sentient ball of stardust. My name is Casey Davis. I'm a therapist, and I'm an author of the book How to Keep House While Drowning, where I talk about ways to make it a little bit easier to take care of yourself when you're overwhelmed, stressed, have mental health issues, physical health issues, or maybe you're just in a hard season of life. Maybe you're looking for a place that you can come and listen to some practical advice. This is a podcast for all of the self-help rejects. We're going to talk about skills for survival and self-kindness. And I'm going to leave the pop psychology at the door. I promise not to tell you to meditate or to journal. We're just going to give you some really insightful conversations with hopefully some practical advice. So I don't believe you need to pick yourself up by the bootstraps. I don't want you to just try harder, and I don't believe that laziness exists. So join me over on Struggle Care, where we can find compassionate solutions that help us function a little bit better.
Are you struggling to conceive? You have options, and at Piedmont Reproductive Endocrinology Group, we'll make sure you have the guidance and support you need. PREG is known for individualized fertility care that's unique to every patient. We take the time to provide a reassuring and empowering experience because we believe that you deserve nothing less. Let us help you on your journey to parenthood. Visit us at pregonline.com to learn more. Get the guidance and support you need at Piedmont Reproductive Endocrinology Group.